From military intelligence. Can you tell us what you've found out about the enemy since you've been here?
We found out that we can't find them. They're out there, and we're having a major difficulty in finding the enemy.
Well, what do you use to look for them?
Well, we ask people, are you the enemy? And whoever says yes, we shoot them.
Weather out there today is hot and shitty, with continued hot and shitty in the afternoon. Tomorrow, a chance of continued crappy with a pissy weather front coming down from the north.
Good morning. Is it raining out there? They say down in LA it hasn't rained in a year. It's amazing, isn't it? Just we slip right back into this drought and we gave millions. Actually, we gave billions. We voted for $7.2 billion here recently. And before that, there was other billions for water resources, and it's just bait and switch. No dams get built. Somehow these legislators just are going to force you to drink less water, use less water, blame it on you with global warming. And so that's how it rolls around here. It's freezing outside. It's global warming. Burning up outside. It's global warming. Any type of change going on, it's global warming. Global warming is the thing that's made Al Gore millions upon millions of dollars. So his latest declaration was the reason we're having freezing back east is, of course, global warming. I got contacted from my friends in Vietnam. They said, Lou, are you freezing to death over there? I think it's freezing in one place in the U.S. It's freezing everywhere. It's a crazy life out there. Couple of people that made their living up in Oregon baking pastries. The appeal court ruled that they have to pay a gay couple $135,000 because they should have baked their wedding cake. So the moral of that story is a gay couple drove 120 miles past 67 secular-owned bakeries, as well as 6 bakeries owned by Muslims, to get to the bakery owned by Christians. Because nothing says my beliefs are being violated like going out of our way to violate other people's beliefs. Probably it's going to take the Supreme Court of the entire United States to throw that out. Is just nonsense. We talked last week, and I also wrote an article in the Territorial Dispatch called "It's Not Gay" about the fact that California public schools now the legislators mandated that in those schools your students will now not only learn about historically significant people in America, but they will now have to learn about their sexual orientation. Now, when I went to school, we learned about presidents and poets and military leaders and people who were inventors, but no one ever talked about which hole they poked their thing in. They never talked about sexuality. You just assumed that people had sex because they produced children. We didn't get into any kind of sexuality. And for generation after generation, for hundreds of years, people turned out pretty good. If people wanted to deviate from that, they just didn't talk about it. Like over at Marysville High School, when I attended there, we had a number of lesbian teachers. In fact, the principal was a lesbian. Nobody really fussed with her. She just did her thing, was a good principal. The teacher was a great English teacher, and people just went on with life and just let them mind their own business, and other people minded their own business, students and teachers. Now, because homosexual people are basically horribly insecure and maladjusted, dysfunctional, that we now have to make them feel better by going back and explaining the sexual behavior that we assume all these people had, even though nobody living today was involved with the lives of these people back in the day. We're going off assumptions, kind of like the people that go into the Bible and suggest that David, king of Israel, was a homosexual. So if you have your children in what I call a government school, they're not really public schools because they're not run by the public, they're run by the government. And they're run by the government to be a propaganda conduit for your kids, whether they want to talk about abortion or bullying or sexual affairs or helping them understand about abortion or how to put on a condom or how to have anal sex. That's all coming through the government schools. So you have a choice to remove your child from school and do private education. From what I understand, you're not going to have a choice to opt out of these classes that teach your kids about the sexual orientation of historic figures. Nor will you get a chance to debate the accuracy of what's being told. So you might want to check, I think it's removeyourchild.com. That's the Randy Thomason SaveCalifornia.com. His second website, I think it's removeyourchild.com. It gives you an idea how you can actually educate your child on your own. And I was thinking this morning as I got up really early and I was thinking about various things, I was thinking about how much more equipped parents are today to educate their own children at home. A lot of people in the beginning, when they thought about homeschooling, thought, my goodness, I'm not a teacher, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the other thing. But now you can go on the internet and get all kinds of classes right on the internet and all kinds of like 10-minute clip, 20-minute clip, 30-minute clips on a variety of topics that are either applicable to the curriculum you're to be learning about or to current events. It's fascinating. I'm just totally fascinated with, and it's certainly a benefit to any parent teaching at home because you're connected to the grid, and your kids can get tutors online. They can get all kinds of things. So there's lots of options. And, of course, the school district is not going to be talking about this unless they have to. They'd rather just, roll it out because it may cause some controversy for some of you. Some of you just send your kids to school and you don't really give a damn. You just send your kids to school and you don't really care what's being taught. You never do make a fuss. For instance, they've been doing that Harvey Milk. Most of you would go down the street and beat up a child molester if you thought he was trying to hustle your kids, but you'll let the school tell your kids that Harvey Milk was a wonderful guy on May 22nd, even though he says that he loved having sex with young boys, and he actually lived with young boys, little underage kids. And that's all right with you. Then you don't do jack diddly about it. So it's a crazy world out there. We did a story here a few years ago on Carlos Ramirez, I think his name was, down in Ocala, Florida. And Carlos never did want to have sex with children, but he was he was a ranch hand and worked with animals. And Carlos, he was attracted to having sex with animals. And so instead of just violating one of the locals' animals, he went out and bought himself his own miniature donkey. And he named it, was it Doodles? Doodles. Doodles. And but he was caught having relations with Doodles, and he was arrested. And the judges, this is amazing, the judges in the South, they not only said he couldn't be around animals for the rest of his life, must have been an environmentalist judge, but he couldn't be around children. In other words, I guess if you don't get along with animals, you can't be with kids either. I don't know why they didn't just put him out in the middle of Kansas somewhere inside of a little chain link fence and let him just rot to death out there and can't be around people either. The odd thing is we also did a story about a guy down in San Francisco who married his dog, but he couldn't consummate the wedding or the arrangement, couldn't consummate the marriage in California, so he had to haul the dog over to Montana where it's legal to have sex with the dog, I guess. So it is a crazy world out there, and it's crazier and crazier in our state. And each year there's about these legislators, they got to figure out something to do because they're the highest paid legislators in the country among the state legislators. They make over $100,000 a year, and then they make another about $40,000 a year that's non-taxable and what they call per diem money to care for them in case they need to get a hotel room, because a lot of them don't live in Sacramento, so they got to get a hotel room or they got to rent an apartment or something. And then, of course, we got to cover their food and gas as well. So they got to be doing something in Sacramento. Years ago, they just met every other year in Sacramento. They didn't need to meet every year. There wasn't enough to do. Because they let people be free. They didn't try to manage every little item of their life. But now they have all kinds of great ideas. And they come up with about 800 to 1,000 new laws every year because there's always new things to think about, like how sharp a pencil ought to be, things like that. So I mentioned some of the new laws last week, but I don't think it was just a selection. But I was fascinated with this one where it said now, it's interesting, they tax you, and you think they're taxing you because they need to take care of some important things like police and fire, right? But then they go way beyond that, and pretty soon they're giving away all kinds of goodies. Like right now, I was just talked to a city councilman from Marysville the other day, and they're being sued by the homeless because the homeless didn't feel like the government's treating them right. And so it's a 31-page lawsuit by a Bay Area lawyer against the city of Marysville. I haven't read it yet, but I got the gist of it. And so when you condition people to feel like they're entitled, that the government's going to provide them stuff, then they look to the government for all kinds of things. I remember the day that I was at church. When a lot of times people call the government, when they run out of ideas there, they'll call the church, because the church used to be the provider of charity in the country until the government usurped that job, took that over. So I got a call from a young father one day, and he said his baby died, his infant, and wanted to know if we'll pay for the funeral. And I thought, and I told him, I said, honestly, man, I said, I've been a father, and I said, I think, first of all, I said, we don't have funds for that, but I wouldn't take away that opportunity for you to bury your own child. I know it's a sad time, but I don't think you'll feel right about it if I paid to bury your child when I'm just another human being and you're a human being. You can figure out how to bury your child. So I think I'm going to leave that responsibility over there for you to take care of. I notice the new law this year now is that if you want to go to community college and you're willing to go full time, it's totally free. Did you know that? In California. Now, I pay taxes. And not only that, at Yuba College, I was informed by an interoffice memo that Yuba College will not only pay for illegal people to go to their college, but they'll even pay their DACA fees, their fee because they're here illegally, and they want to extend their time they're here until the Trump administration can decide whether they need to leave or not. These aren't 3-year-old kids. These could be up to 31 years of age. And we're paying a $495 fee. Now, it's interesting. Where do you think all that money comes from? Maybe some of you don't want to think about that. The government doesn't have any money of its own, doesn't sell a product that it earns any money and earns any profit and has any extra. They take your money and my money, and they then spend it for all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, what was it, the honeybee? They were checking on whether if the honeybee was on cocaine, whether it was making more honey or having more sex or something like that. You know, honestly, there's so many perverts in politics today that it's unlimited. It's infinite on how many crazy ideas. Now, even though I don't have any children in school, I only had children in school for 12 to 16 years, right? If they went to college. I took care of that. I paid taxes all during that time. But in California, you need to pay for the schools no matter whether you're 150. You're still paying for schools. And now college kids, I don't even know why we want to encourage kids to go to college when there's so many job openings in construction and manufacturing right now. They'll pay 5 to 6 figures that are going unfilled, and you can't even get that when you get out of some of these college classes. If you stumbled into this show today, you're listening to Live with Lou, and I'm here with Santos Vigil. We're on top of Mount Huth where it rained, but our redneck rain gauge in the hallway got moved from under the hole in the roof, and it got moved, and now the carpet's wet, and we don't know how we're going to suck the water out so we can measure how many inches. I was going to tell you how many inches it rained the last couple of days, but somebody moved. Did you move the rain gauge back under the hole? Yeah, we moved the rain gauge back in the hole. They say it's going to rain an inch or so this week, so we'll be able to be more accurate. As long as somebody in the house needs to take a critical thinking course on where that garbage can needs to be so we can measure the water. So now you can go to Yuba College or a city college, community college, free of charge for all new students, full time. Marijuana is legal to purchase. Your registrations fees, people in Texas are shocked at how much we pay for registration fees here. That's before the additional registration fees, because your registration fees before and all the gas taxes went for something else, not to fix the roads or fix the freeways. So we now pay $25 to $175 more on the value of your car per year. Oh, by the way, this is KMYC. This is a Patriot up here on Mount Huth. We're out here in Yuba County. If you're listening from another state, that's out here in Northern California, or some people call it California. And it's KMYCradio.com if you want to get on the website and dial in on Listen Live, or you can listen on the radio, or you can listen on your computer on KMYCradio.com, or if you just don't have time to listen to it, or you get bored and you have to go do something, you want to check how it all ends at noon, you can pick it up on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, go to One Eye Blind Media, and then click on Live with Lou and pick the show you want. Well, minimum wage, I talk about the fact that, isn't it amazing that our founding fathers didn't want but a little bit of government to protect us against foreign invaders and local invaders, people that were invade your house from next door, down the street, or over in the other neighborhood. But now we have government telling us everything we can or can't do, how people are going to be dressed, how much you got to pay an hour. Now the new minimum wage is $11 an hour. You can't just decide along with your employee how much you want to pay them. You can't even decide at how young they can go to work. There's rules on that. If a 14-year-old comes and wants to do some work a few hours after school each day, can't hire the guy. that a shame? We talk about free enterprise, private enterprise. Nothing free or private about it. The government lets you put your name on it, at least up until now they do. But they're going to design the sign. They're going to pick the color on the building in a lot of cases. They'll tell you how many trees you have in your parking lot, how many toilets you have, how wide the door is, all the how to get in, how to get out, on and on and on and on and on. How much time people get for a break, right to smoke outside, have a smoking area, just on and on and on. We now have a sanctuary state, which is telling schools like Yuba College, they've told all their staff at Yuba College that they cannot cooperate with law enforcement. Isn't that great? Can you imagine that? They cannot cooperate with law enforcement regarding illegal immigrants. This is another one, the legislature a year or so ago talked about that schools could decide for themselves whether they want to have allow teachers to carry a gun with a concealed carry permit. When some schools allowed their teachers to do that, then the state threw a fit, and now they've banned it. So there are no guns permitted on any public school campus, even if you have a permit. That pretty much makes it open season on any nutcase that wants to walk in and shoot the place up. You think one armed cop, in fact, some of the cops have been even told on the campus resource officers, they call them, they've been told by local, I think at Yuba City High, they told them they can't carry a gun over there. Just like, well, how, on these campuses that are sometimes 20 acres, 30 acres, think one cop is going to do any good? I think every teacher that wants to pack should be able to pack, but not here in California. Now, all ammunition purchases must be made in person. You cannot. I had lunch with a friend of mine the other day after the show here, and we were talking about this. He said, "Lou, I buy all my ammo online. Do you buy your ammo? You buy ammo?" A lot of people buy ammo online. I didn't know that. Why wouldn't that be true? We buy everything else online, right? I hardly ever been in the store. I go grocery shopping, but that may even end. I buy everything else online. And now, but you can't buy ammunition in California online. I think that's going to get overthrown by the Supreme Court. Now, if you go in, you can have a 4-foot-long beard and declare at the DMV you are a female and have that put on your driver's license. Is this crazy? This is like unbelievable. Gender identity. You just come up with your own idea what that's going to be for you and just like have a happy. Now this is the government. This is the best they can do with paying them nearly $200,000 a year down there, each of them, is come up with stuff like this. We got to have a baby. This is mandated. It isn't just maybe a good idea or a suggestion. You have to provide a baby changing table in all restrooms, including men's. Pet stores, this is amazing to me. Pet stores will only be able to sell rescue animals. In other words, you always wonder where that doggy in the window came from, right? You ever wonder that? You think people raise puppies to be sold so people could get a puppy, right? So if you want to go buy a goldfish or you want to go buy fish for your aquarium or you want to buy a hamster, I thought you just went to a pet store and bought that stuff. Now, the government says in California, they can only sell an animal that's been rescued. Well, what if you didn't want a rescue animal? What if you wanted like a little puppy? Now you can't do that. And it includes dogs, cats, and rabbits. I don't know, just these guys and gals got to figure out something to do with their life. I wonder if they can come up with a law that you shouldn't put your hand up the dress of a woman unless she's interested in it. Or those type of things. It doesn't seem to make any difference with those guys down in Sacramento. They just seem to molest people I thought if the law, I don't know, maybe these laws don't work. Now you can't ask an employee how much they made at their previous job. If the guy, you're trying to think about hiring a guy and you're trying to say, well, how much you've been making and trying to figure out where you can't, it's off limits. You cannot ask a person. This is just like the government running your business for you. Employers will no longer be able to ask for salary and benefits history of how you did in the past. And we must provide a pay scale for the job upon request. Oh, also on buses, you know how when you got on a bus, there usually weren't seat belts. Did you ever think that was odd? I always thought that odd. I got ticketed for not wearing my seatbelt. Back in the day when they started seatbelts, I thought, I don't need no stinking seatbelt. I've been driving this way for 30 years. Why do I need a stinking seatbelt? Highway patrol officer said, he said, how come you don't wear a seatbelt? I says, well, I haven't worn one for all these years and just haven't got in the habit. He said, well, I'm going to help you get in the habit. I'm going to give you a ticket right here. I'm going to give you a ticket right here and help you get in the habit. So wearing a seatbelt on buses is mandatory. So if you see some strap at that seat, you got to put that on. If you don't put it on, you can get a ticket. And this is one that just is amazing to me. Everything, we got to talk about everything nowadays. We got to talk about the sex of Abraham Lincoln, whether he was a homosexual or whether Thomas Jefferson's butler was a homosexual, and because we got to show that homosexuals are smart people. Some of them can have sex with a donkey, and they can be really intelligent and run a business and have sex with an animal. Or with 4 or 5 people at a time. In fact, some of the district attorneys, deputy district attorneys in Sutter County had sex with multiple people, and they went then on the morning after and prosecuted a guy for having sex with an underage girl. How about that? Yes, we still have some lines we've drawn in the sand, but not others. You wonder about people's judgment if they want to have sex in an orgy, and yet you're trusting their judgment to be on the district attorney's office of Sutter County, but then they go out and want their wife and then husband and wife to have sex with the husband's girlfriend. All 3 of them at one time. Are we out of time? We're out of time. The Wikiman Santos over here is telling me we're out of time. We're coming right back. We got some more to talk about. We got 2.5 hours left. Don't go away unless you want to catch it on One Eye Blind Media.
To the term first responders.
Fellow community members stepping forward, volunteering their time to help others faced with what might be some of the most traumatic incidents in their lives.
It's called the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP. It's been used in communities across the United States for years, and its volunteers have been dispatched to provide what they call emotional first aid.
A collaboration between police, paramedics, fire departments, and even hospital staff is making sure residents are emotionally taken care of in a time of crisis. Residents are volunteering their time with the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP, dispatched to the scene of a fire, accident, or death to focus on the emotional needs of those left behind.
It's just being there and being comforting, like a good friend or an extension of your family.
Ready to assist, sit, and listen to community members in a time of tragedy.
To learn more about the Trauma Intervention Program, visit yubasuttertip.org or call 673-90.
In direct defiance of President Trump, California law enforcement officials have new, strict limits on how much they can help federal immigration authorities. Police can no longer ask for someone's immigration status. Landlords can face civil penalties for threatening to report renters to federal authorities. Federal agents will need warrants to raid workplaces, and employers can be fined for failing to warn workers 72 hours in advance. California already has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. Now they're getting even stricter. All school employees are banned from carrying concealed weapons on campus. Anyone convicted of a hate crime loses the right to own a gun for 10 years. Anyone building guns from parts will have to get a serial number from the state. All ammunition sales have to go through a licensed vendor. So even if you order bullets online, you'll have to go to a store to pick them up. On the road, you should know that you cannot smoke or consume marijuana at any time while you're driving. Registering your car will cost up to $175 more as the state is tacking on a road improvement fee. Alternative fuel vehicles are exempt. Beginning in September, Californians who are transgender, intersex, or don't identify as male or female can choose a gender-neutral option on their driver's license. And if you have a note from your doctor, you can have your car windows tinted. Job applicants will no longer have to answer the question, how much did you make in your last job? Also banned, that little box that asks if you have a criminal record. Millions of workers at small businesses will now get up to 12 weeks of unpaid family leave without losing their health insurance. And the state's minimum wage is bumping up again to $11 an hour. Catherine Heenan, KRON 4 News.
There's a movement in cities across the country to raise the minimum wage to $15 per hour. One of the most prominent advocates is former Labor Secretary Robert Reich, who thinks that $15 per hour should be the minimum wage for the entire country. This is a bad idea. Here are 3 reasons why. First of all, it would kill jobs. One of the basic lessons of economics is that when the price of something goes up, people buy less of it. So, if the price of pumpkin lattes rises, you can expect consumers to buy fewer of them. This law of demand also affects the market for low-skilled workers. Raising the minimum wage means a higher cost of employing each worker, which makes workers less affordable than before. Our coffee shop won't keep a worker at the mandated $15 per hour if that worker's efforts only result in $7.25 per hour in added revenue. Over the course of a year, a shop that keeps such a worker full-time would lose $15,500. So instead, it will eliminate that job. And evidence shows that employers in fact do respond in this way to minimum wage hikes. Recent research by economists Jeffrey Clemens and Michael Wither finds that 1.4 million jobs were destroyed in the late 2000s when the minimum wage rose across all 50 states by an average of nearly 30%. And worse, those job losses were probably suffered by the people who need jobs the most. This fact brings us to reason number 2. The minimum wage actually hurts the people we most want to help. When the minimum wage rises, the workers fired first and the ones hired last are those who employers judge to be the least productive. The inner-city teen from the lousy school district or the immigrant with poor English will be fired before the suburban American teen from the excellent school district. So those who are most disadvantaged tend to suffer the most job losses. This reality is compounded by the fact that raising the minimum wage causes more competition for jobs. A supermarket job that once paid $8 per hour draws more applicants when it pays $15 per hour. Applicants who include retirees and people with higher education who re-enter the workforce only because of the higher wage. Because these people often have more skills, they squeeze out immigrants and those from disadvantaged backgrounds who are likely more desperate for the jobs and certainly more desperate to gain job experience. The third reason is that minimum wage hikes aren't necessary to give deserving workers raises. 96% of American workers today earn wages higher than the current minimum wage, which proves that employers don't just pay the minimum that they're obliged to pay by law. Employers respond to the value that each employee adds so they can retain the best talent. It's expensive to train new employees, and businesses don't want to lose good workers to their competitors. So they raise worker pay voluntarily as employees gain more skills and experience. But when government imposes such raises by hiking the minimum wage, some of the least experienced workers will not only lose their current jobs, they'll find it incredibly hard to find other jobs. In essence, the minimum wage cuts off the first rung on the employment ladder, and it's that first, lowest paying rung that provides the skills and experience workers need to reach the next rung and to continue climbing their way to a better life.
Welcome back. You're listening to Live with Lou. We were talking about some of the insane laws that the government continues to inflict upon us, making criminals out of honest people. Can you imagine Geyser Pets now has to prove if every law has to have somebody to enforce the law, so law enforcement doesn't enforce some of these laws. You have government bureaucrats that drive around in little white pickups with a little clipboard or a tablet, technology tablet, and they come in and they stop you from selling and doing your job, and then you have to entertain them and spend time with them so they can audit you to see whether that rabbit that you got in that cage right there came from an animal shelter as opposed to from a breeder that breeds rabbits to sell at pet stores or cats or dogs. Or you have a business, and so a little bureaucrat comes in to check, and then he comes out of your restroom and says, I need to write you up a citation because I couldn't find a baby changing table in all of your restrooms. The other one that I didn't get to, I'm going to stop at this one and move on, but in all public schools, you and I now will have to finance free tampons and pads in half of all the restrooms. Not all of them, just half of them. So I don't know which half or how everybody knows which half and where they are, but they'll have to have dispensers that are free. Now I wonder if it's going to limit you how many you take, whether a kid in the 8th grade, a girl, could grab 40 and take them home to cover her mom and all her sisters as well, her adult sisters. So, but this is just going to apply to low income areas. So if it's a real expensive area, they can afford their own tampons. But for instance, in our area, probably both Yuba and Sutter counties, as most of them are low-income schools, and so they'll have free tampons and pads. Now, I don't know why. I think that's an important item that women need. I don't know why I have to pay for that. But I would think also, I think one important thing, I don't use a tampon, but I think toilet paper is important too, right? Now, I think toilet paper is, for Americans. Now, when I was in India, they didn't use toilet paper. I'll just let your imagination run wild on that one. They didn't use toilet paper. And they just ate with the hand that they didn't wipe with. So hold that thought. So they kept it all separate. So I was thinking toilet paper ought to be paid for, and maybe we could, I don't know how we would distribute it. One of the ways of capitalism, how you manage the abuse of things, is you charge money for it, right? So you earn money, and then you go into the store and you buy a battery, for instance, for your toothbrush or whatever, for your flashlight. But if the batteries were free, people would just take more than they need, and there would be a tremendous waste. So I'm just wondering now, we're now funding. I don't know, remember if anybody got a survey. Did you want to do this? Probably not. What happened is a majority of the legislators in Sacramento decided that poor people are somehow running around with blood running down their leg, and because they don't have a tampon. Now, back in the day, I just figured school nurses handled all the weird stuff that went on in school. If a kid got sick, they went to the nurse's office. If they twisted their ankle, they went to the nurse. The nurse kind of picked up all those loose ends. Now, somehow, we're going to have a stack of tampons that'll constantly be disappearing, and we'll have to fund that, and we'll have to have a bureaucrat, a tampon bureaucrat. Can you imagine you raise a kid, you pay for all his health needs, his school needs, you clothe him for 15, 20 years, and then when he gets his big job, you say, well, honey, how did, what are you doing for a living? She says, well, I work for the state of California, and I'm the tampon overseer. I make sure that we have plenty of tampons in all these restrooms, and I go in and audit them to make sure there's sufficient number. It's kind of like the people that drive around the farms now, and then if the mobile toilet that follows the farm workers, when I worked in ag, I used to have to use my forklift and grab that toilet thing, slide the forks under it, lift it up, and move it along with the workers. Dig a hole, and back then we just dug a hole, and everything was just left in the orchard, right? Now you got porta potties, and all of it's transported out. But if the porta potty or whatever you got, and the water and the toilet paper, which normally gets stolen off the cart to follow the farm workers, if that isn't within the exact number of feet of the farm worker, you get fined hundreds of dollars. And you have a bureaucrat driving around in a little Jeep that's paid, doesn't produce anything for society other than sucking the money out of some hardworking farmer. And so we have that on every factory. My friend Lyman Coe, who has co-manufacturing a Live Oak, he employs almost 100 people building farm equipment from scratch. It's just like a car factory, but they build equipment. And he said, Lou, almost every day of the week, I got a state bureaucrat in a white pickup and a little laptop or a notebook walking around my place, making sure that I'm following all the rules that those legislators made down there in Sacramento, and keeps track of how much paint I'm spraying on my equipment, how my compressors are running, where my cords are running, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, people, we have just gone totally off the rails. So one of the organizations that has sprung up several years ago in total frustration of all this type of stuff is the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots. That's the local expression of the Tea Party. It used to be called the Tea Party. And remember the liberals made a big jokes about it, just mocked it, just made big jokes about it. And weirdos, radicals, racists, they always say racist, racist, racist. And so Tea Parties started springing up across the United States to give vent to people that were just fed up with stuff I'm talking about today. Micromanaging every bit of your life. What days you can water your lawn, how much water you can use. Even though you're paying for the water, it's like you can only buy so much. And so the Tea Party Patriots locally here, Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots, they meet on the first and third Mondays of the month, and they meet out at Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, 1179 Eager Road in Yuba City. And the next meeting is coming up on the 15th. And it's kind of timely who they pick to speak. They have our Assembly Representative James Gallagher speaking. And James has been talking a lot about the evacuation of 200,000 people that happened all of a sudden without any warning, very little warning. And where the spillway at Oroville Dam collapsed. And so this week, I heard on the news, although I didn't read the report, that the fact-finding committee that was put together to evaluate what happened, why could this happen when that is overseen by both federal and state agencies? You know, it's like, what do you do when the federal and state agencies hammer you with law after law after law, yet they don't follow their own rules and do a crappy job themselves? So the fact-finding group found that the Department of Water Resources was at fault in numbers of areas of this entire dam collapse. Usually government officials never want to take responsibility for anything. They want all the responsibility, but they don't want to take any fault for anything that happens under their jurisdiction. So it's timely that they're going to have James Gallagher there, and I like the fact that he's there because it's a nice venue to ask him a lot of questions, and it can be very casual and back and forth. So this meeting on the 15th, Monday the 15th, you can go to that at 6:30. Doors open at 6. They get started right on time. And so James was already scheduled to be there and to talk about the Oroville Dam, even though this release of this information just came out this week, so it's timely. So he's going to be talking about the update on the Oroville Dam, progress of the repairs, and talk about what he has in sight for his punch list for this year as our representative in Yuba and Sutter counties. So the other thing that the Tea Party wanted me to talk about is that, you remember Hillary Clinton had a list of people, gnarly people in the United States she called deplorable people, that were all the type of people that would only vote for a guy named President Donald Trump. And that was an amazing term, that deplorable. So people kind of ran with that were supporting Trump. And the Tea Party locally decided to have a Deplora Ball. And that's a celebration or a party. They had one last year, so this is the second annual Deplora Ball. And they are going to have that buffet dinner and get-together on the 20th of January at the Two Bits Cafe, and it's going to be from 6:30 to 9:30, and they're going to celebrate the first year in office of the President of the United States, Donald Trump, 45th President. And so 1272 Calusa Avenue, that's right off Calusa Avenue there where Red Robin and Food Max and all those stores are. Two Bits Cafe, it's a popular breakfast and lunch spot. And so they're going to have a buffet, dinner, music, dancing, all that kind of stuff, and it's $20. And I'm going to give you where you can connect with that in just a second, but it's $20, and you cannot get tickets at the door. You need to get it on and get them ahead of time. And I'm going to tell you where to get that. I'm going to give you a couple phone numbers. You ready? If you want to go, January 20th. And so you can call Bill at 415-0343. That's 530-415-0343, Bill Beeler. Or Tammy Reichard, Tammy at 530-701-2845. 701-2845. So they need to tell Two Bits, I guess they're catering it since it's at their place, how much food to prepare for folks, but you don't have to bring anything. You just pay your ticket, and you're there from 6:30 to 9:30. Have a good time. Stay as long as you want. Have some fun. It's a celebration of the victory of the deplorables over Hillary Clinton and the first-year successes of Donald Trump. Sounds good to me. So you got the 15th with James Gallagher, which should be a very interesting meeting, and I think you can bring all your gnarly questions. I don't know whether he'll bring anybody with him from the Department of Water Resources or it'll just be him. That's all that's listed right now, but who knows? Since there's this new report has come out, we might find this thing might develop, and might be some new stuff coming. I wrote down some areas that I thought were interesting of the Trump successes that stand out. Now, there's official lists that are amazing, long lists, but these are the things that have stood out to me. I was on my way into work or to this show today, and there was a financial advisor that's on a San Francisco station, and he was talking about, he thought that the Dow Industrial Mark, the stock market mark, will get up to over 28,000 this coming year. Now, when Donald Trump was running for office, they proclaimed, the liberals, when I say they, proclaimed that if he was elected, the stock market would crash. I don't know why they would think that, but that's what they said, so I'm just saying what they said. The stock market has never been this high in the history of the stock market. It's over 25,000, so it set a record. ISIS, which Barack Obama never could figure out what to do with besides give them support occasionally, and he would call them the JV team, and then he would say they really didn't have a strategy, and we would watch videos of them slicing people's necks and chopping their heads off, right? ISIS now is down to their final little city holdout. Tax cuts. Who would have imagined we'd have tax cuts within 12 months or 365 days of Trump taking office? But we have a tax cut, and I'm going to talk about how massive that tax cut is a little bit later. But I'm amazed at how liberals seem to hate tax cuts. They just don't want any of their money back. And the fascinating thing is, I don't know why liberals, if they want to give to government so bad, why don't they just donate to government? You know, did you know you can donate to government? You can just donate it for a certain cause, like donate to the Environmental Protection Agency and say, I want this to go towards the environment. You can just donate to them. Why would you want to inflict this punishment on everybody? But I see people, when they heard that companies were giving $1,000 bonuses, they thought, well, that isn't much. I thought, I've never got a $1,000 bonus in my life. Have you ever got a $1,000 bonus? I've never got a $1,000 bonus in my entire life. I thought $1,000, I got a lot I could do with $1,000. I'd love to have a $1,000 bonus. And wages are going up. And it's not government forced. It's people wanting to give wage hikes because they have more profit and they can afford to, and they like their people, and they want to keep their people, so they give them more money. It's not government force. There should be no minimum wage. Government should not even dictate any of that stuff. The other thing is they're cutting 22 regulations. I don't know why 22 for every regulation they create. So what's happening is thousands of businesses are benefiting by fewer regulations. The other thing is, I think I have an article about this. Billions of dollars are being repatriated from overseas. You know what that means? That means that businesses were stashing their money overseas because they didn't want to pay money on money they were making on money. So they stashed it overseas, and now with the cut in taxes from corporate taxes, they're bringing that money back to be kept here, and they're willing to pay some taxes on it, which we weren't getting zero. We weren't getting any before. So they're bringing their money back. These are Trump successes. We're enforcing the law on the border, with exceptions with California where they're standing in the way. But in general, we're literally arresting thousands of gangbangers that are illegals, MS-13 people out of Central South America, Mexico. I think it's great. Not much is being talked about this, but backing law enforcement and the military. You remember Obama, every time the cops got in a shootout, he would always take the side of the thug. And remember the beer summit? Were you sick of that as much as I? And he would never honor the military. By the way, we're going to talk about this when I come back. The lowest black unemployment rate in the history since it's been kept track of for ethnic groups. 45 years, in the last 45 years. Lowest unemployment rate. We'll be right back.
Participation trophies. I'm not a fan. They're bad for kids, bad for parents, bad for society. Other than that, they're okay. Don't get me wrong. I love any kind of organized competition for kids. I lived and breathed baseball, basketball, football, and soccer growing up. If there was a sport to be played, I played it. And never once did anybody ever tell me that winning was not important or that showing up was all that mattered. But today, kids get a different message. Losing, no big deal. Showing up, that deserves a trophy. Wow, what an awful thing to tell a kid. Glad my parents or coaches never said it to me. If they had, I'm sure I never would have become a pro soccer player. Let me tell you why. In high school, I was a good soccer player. I thought I could play soccer in college. Looking back, though, I just wasn't good enough in those college coaches' eyes. I tried out for the UCLA team as a walk-on. I made it. I was vindicated. I had arrived on the bench. The coach hardly ever looked at me. I'm not even sure he knew my name. I know he didn't care about my feelings. I wanted to be a starter. I wanted to be a winner. Shouldn't I have been satisfied just for making the team? Of course not. That's absurd. But isn't that what kids are told today? You're a winner, even if you're not. Even if you come in last, and we'll give you a trophy, just for showing up, just for participating. This belief that showing up is an accomplishment is self-destructive, because the pain of losing is part of what drives one to improve. The frustration of going to game after game and sitting on the bench drove me nuts. I had to practice more. I had to work harder. Or I had to give up. And I didn't want to give up. This taught me an important lesson. If you don't put in the work, you won't get ahead. And not getting ahead, well, that feels awful. So put in the work or go home. So I put in the work. I pushed myself not to do my best, because who can possibly know what their best is, but to be better and better. And one day my chance came. Coach put me in the game, not because I wanted so badly to play, but because he needed me. I played well enough to start the next game where I scored a goal and had an assist. After that, I started every game. The road to victory in sports, in business, in life, is paved with losses, painful losses, losses that can hurt so much it's hard to breathe. Any professional athlete or successful entrepreneur will tell you that's true. But participation trophies, everybody is the valedictorian, and let's all pat each other on the back awards communicate a different message. They tell you that losing doesn't matter. It matters. They tell you that competition is, at best, not important, and at worst, dangerous. I wonder how my soccer career would have turned out if I'd grown up with these ideas in my head. I was cut twice during the tryout period for the 1992 Olympics. My pro soccer team, the LA Galaxy, lost 3 times in the championship before we finally won in 2002. Guess what? I survived all these disappointments and a whole lot more. They only made victory that much sweeter. In the real world, you're rewarded for achievement, not effort. Promotions don't go to the employees who did their best. They go to the employees who did the best. But what if the kids can't handle losing? What if it's too painful? That's the whole point. It's your job as the adult, as the parent, to help them understand that losing, that not getting what they want, is a part of life. Nobody likes to fail, but it's inevitable, and it's the only path ultimately to success. Yes, showing up and participating is important. Trying your best is important, but neither deserves a trophy. If you want one of those, go win something.
Welcome back. This is Live with Lou. You're listening to The Patriot at 1410 a.m. And we've been talking about some of the amazing successes of this administration. And administrations don't create jobs. They just, as Trump knows, they get out of the way so jobs can go forth and develop. Businesses create jobs. I get a kick out of it when government says, we're going to start a job training program. Government doesn't know how to do job training. The people who know how to do job training is McDonald's and Walmart and all these places that give people the first jobs of their life, many of them. They know how to create the skills that people need to move on up. So I mentioned that, the government has been keeping track of unemployment figures for many, many years, and I mentioned that, but they haven't always divided up the unemployment statistics according to ethnic group, but they started about 45 years ago, and so the unemployment rate right now for black folks is the lowest it's ever been, and I'll get into more detail of that in a minute, but when I came in today and I was talking to couple supervisors for Yuba County who were leaving the studio. We were talking about jobs, and I was talking about how I keep getting Facebook posts from Clean Right, Build Right, which I believe is located in a number of counties up and down the valley. I know they're up in Butte County, they're in Sutter County, Yuba County, and they do everything from fire restoration to flood, cleaning up your property floods or water damage, hazardous waste damage, construction, fires, etc. And I keep getting these advertisements. We need workers. We need workers. And I was just talking to Santos here where he works during the week. He said, we need workers. I was driving down Bridge and Plumas area in Yuba City. The plumbing company there on the corner says, we need workers. All these people are saying, we need workers. I was listening to, at the end of Andy's show, he had the, is it Mike Rowe? Is that who was talking? The dirty job guy? And he was talking about during 2008 when the recession hit, how many thousands of jobs that were really available, but people weren't skilled to do them. They were in the construction industry, which pays really a lot of money. Another organization that I was amazed when I initially looked at their website was Elite Universal Security, located here in Yuba Sutter area and also in Butte County and Shasta County. And they were right on their website. They said, help wanted. We need workers. Elite Universal Security. I know they have some office workers and some dispatchers, but their main bunch of people are doing security work. Securing businesses, government properties, private properties, homes, driving by, checking, having people walk and patrol. In downtown Marysville, they have people that walk and patrol different areas because the police don't do that. They're just not providing help from people that are getting accosted by panhandlers. So you can get a job at Elite Universal Security, or what I call Elite Security for short, by calling them at 749-0280, 749-0280. Or you can go on their website, which is just their name, eliteuniversalsecurity.com, and you can check it out and then contact them off that site as well. The other thing is that they also have schooling. So if you think, hey, I didn't really want to go to college yet, but I want to learn some skills, want to go to work, you can do that. And you can get your schooling to get involved in the security guard business by attending their academy, which is called the API Academy. And if you go to api-academy.com, api-academy.com, you can find out when their courses are coming up and what's being offered, how much it costs, and if you're fit into a certain category and you're short of money, but you want to take certain courses that will allow you to get a job with them, they might be able to refer you to financial sources to help you pay for that. But they have all kinds of training that goes on throughout the year. The CCW, that's concealed weapons permits, guard card training, pepper spray, handcuffing, taser training, de-escalation of force training. So check it out. And, but it's amazing. The country is booming right now. And it's going to get better. In fact, those of you that are used to getting a paycheck, that don't work on your own, but you work for someone else, your paychecks should start looking different in February, according to the IRS. When they come out with a new withdrawal schedules, they should be taking less amount of money out of your check because you're not going to need to pay as much, depending on your status. You know how you tell them, I'm married, I'm filing married, I have 3 dependents, 4 dependents, et cetera, et cetera. So that should change coming up and be more prorated. I wanted to mention some other things that are highlights of the country doing better. Now, it's fascinating to me because liberals don't want the country to do better. They would rather have more and more people on food stamps, more and more people on welfare, more and more people dependent upon the nation. I notice I like to get things done well, but I don't think I'm a control freak. A control freak, which I would consider big government people, is they want to manage people's lives. Like they want to tell them, you need to have free tampons in your bathrooms. You have to pay everybody this amount of money. You have to have health insurance that includes abortion. Those are control freaks. And there's a certain satisfaction that control freaks get, because then they can take some credit for people's successes in life. Instead of encouraging people to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps so they can take their own credit, we'd rather give them the participation trophies, and we'd rather lean back in our chair and have self-satisfaction that if it wasn't for us, all these people would starve. It's really a fantasy, but liberals live that way. So they don't want Trump to increase the amount of people earning a living. Like over 60, 70,000 coal miners have gone back to work. They don't care about those coal miners' families. And so one of the great statistics I love to see is that this industry lost jobs. 16,000 people. There are 16,000 individuals less working for this group than were before Donald Trump took presidency, and that's the federal government. The size of the federal government has shrunk by 16,000. And he's participated at the White House. I think Melania Trump uses about 4 employees compared to her predecessor, Michelle Obama. She had about 24 employees. I think they reduced the amount of employees around the White House by over 100 employees. So the other thing is that manufacturing jobs increased by 196,000 jobs in 2017. To compare, in 2016, when Barack Obama was president, the manufacturing sector in our country lost 16,000 jobs. That's an amazing, that's almost like 210,000 or 214,000 job turnaround in just 12 months. I want you to think how short a period of time it has been. Now listen, the government doesn't go out and create manufacturing jobs. All the government did was get out of the way, reduce regulations, and promise we're going to reduce taxes, and we're not going to harass you, and we're going to make it easier to mine coal, drill for oil, etc., and mine other important minerals, and we're going to do it safely, and we're going to do it economically proper, and so businesses, okay, we're gonna increase our employment, right? So I'm going to talk about some of these companies that have increased here. Before we get over here today, we have a little bit of time left today, a couple hours almost. So the other thing is the construction industry, as I mentioned here about 15 minutes ago, is short of workers. I've run into numbers of my friends. A lot of my friends are ex-gangbangers, criminals that have turned their lives around. At the post office, I ran into a guy who looked good, and we touched base, and he was asking me for some advice on something. And I said, hey, how you doing? Because he's a really good worker, and he's worked for one of my friends before. And I said, where are you working? How you working? He's been in prison here over the last few years. And he said, Lou, I got a great job with the laborers union. And he said, I've been working at Oroville Dam, repairing that spillway. And he just said, I've had a great job. Another guy that just got out of prison, who I met at a rehab, is working building a bridge in Chester. For the first time in his life, he's in he's Carpenters Union, building a bridge, making a lot of money. So these guys are going to make in the five figures, probably make $60,000, $70,000 or more. And these guys were in prison not too long ago. You wonder, we have this term called felon-friendly employers, felon-friendly. There's a lot of employers that are felon-friendly if a person can pass a drug test or alcohol test, see if they got what they got on board. And but there's a shortage of construction industry workers. Here's the other encouraging reduction. Not only is there 16,000 less federal government workers, I wish that was 160,000 in 16. Maybe by the time we get done next year, we'll double that. But the food stamp recipients is going down by 2 million. Now, a lot of liberals, they just think they like the feeling of being able to give handouts, particularly when they're handing out my money. They never want to give their own money. Did you know that, I forget the name of this book. It was written by a guy named Brooks, but the point of the book was Who Gives the Most? That's not the title of it. It was a catchy title. But anyway, he wrote a book on who is the most generous. And he found, who do you think he found? You think liberals? Because they're always talking about, oh, we're the poor man, we're for the black man, we're for the Hispanic, we're for the poor, we're for the... Do you know who the most generous people are when you look at personal income tax? Who gives the most money, the highest percentage of their money to help poverty or charitable causes? It's Republican people. It's conservative people. And do you know that the most generous state in the union? This is fascinating. It's the poorest state in the union, Mississippi. And so we have 2 million fewer food stamp recipients, and they are attributing the economy, the boom in the economy. People are going to work, making more money. Some states are now having a work requirement, but they didn't for many, many years. They're adding a work requirement that if you're single, a single guy, for instance, or a single woman, and you want food stamps, you have to show Arthur Brooks, Who Really Cares. There you go. If you want to read a good book on who really is helping whom in America, it's Who Really Cares by Arthur Brooks. And Wikiman looked that up for us while we were chatting here. So the economy, work requirements, and drug testing, food stamp recipients. The other one that wasn't listed, but I know is a fact, that a lot of illegal aliens are bailing off food stamps because they don't want to get caught. They're illegally getting them, and they don't want to get caught and get deported over receiving food stamps. So food stamps are lowest. So there's a lot of good successes. I know that the liberals, they don't really care whether the economy is booming. They don't. The next thing, you know what, all they did is point out the negatives. For instance, one of the supposed negatives of the Trump tax cuts, or we should say the Republican Party Trump tax cuts, because not one Democrat voted for them. One of the big complaints was the deficit's going to go up. My hunch is the deficit's going to actually go down because more taxes are going to be produced, and that is going to take the place of the cut in taxes, the personal income taxes. There's going to be more business done, more people are going to earn more income, and that will generate even more taxes, and it will offset and start paying down the deficit. So there you have that. I want to mention these countries. Well, let me just do the black unemployment rate. Do you remember all the discussion? Do you remember, since been 12 months now, have you seen Jesse Jackson on the news? Is Jesse Jackson sick? Did I hear he had Parkinson's disease or something? Is he all right? I have not seen Jesse Jackson or Sharpton. Have you seen Sharpton lately? I haven't heard Sharpton or Jackson. You would think, or the head of the NAACP, you would think if I was the head of any of these things representing black people, I would have at least had the integrity to say Donald Trump, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Jesus. The unemployment rate for black Americans is down to 6.8%. Now, all these unemployment rates are somewhat deceptive. It's a measurement of something. It's just not a measurement of what you think. Let me just explain this. It only measures the people that are collecting unemployment or looking for a job. The people that are no longer collecting because they ran out all their benefits and now are off the system, or they're not enrolled in looking for a job, it doesn't list them. They're just this big bulk of people that are just mooching off the system. They're not in on the game anymore. They're sitting on the sidelines of life. So, but this is a measurement compared to the same measurement we had under the Obama administration. So they are real numbers in the sense that these are blacks that either are on unemployment or are looking for a job. So it's the lowest rate in the last 45 years when they started dividing up who is really unemployed. It's just not people who don't have a job, but what color are they? What people are they from? So the amazing thing is that the Hispanic unemployment rate is down to 4.9%. 4.9%. And last year, at the end of Trump's first year, November, it was 4.7%. White unemployment rate is at 3.7%. The people that are the most employed in this country are Asian people, and they only have 2.5% of Asians unemployed. I went and got some takeout at Dragon Inn. It's right across. I can smell it when they start cooking over there. I have to fight it every day. I have to fight it. I think I got to go eat Chinese. And I can look out my window and see the cars stacked up over there. So finally, I just called them up. They know me. So I just called them. I said, hey, man, I just need a plate of food. I don't even get the box. They just make the plate and just put the top on it, right? And I just give me the combo plate, the orange chicken, And it's unbelievable. I mean, the food is just like, I don't know whether it's going to be any better in heaven, but it's going to be close. I don't know if they serve Chinese food in heaven. But anyway, I went over there, and this young guy and his brother used to be these old guys, these old Chinese dudes, right? And now the old dudes are getting tired, so he's got these young dudes. They're probably 25. They're in there. And so I was waiting for my plate of, do you get an egg roll, do you get the orange chicken, and then you get the pork fried rice. It's just unbelievable. It's like, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm sitting there waiting, and I said, hey, what's going on? You going to school? What are you doing? He said, no, I graduated from UC Davis, and he said, I'm waiting to he said, I've applied for a job down in the Bay Area. And I said, oh, what's your area of interest? He said, oh, I graduated in design. And he said, my brother's still going to UC Davis. So here they are slinging Chinese food, right? You think, oh, these guys are just going to be in the restaurant business, but they're just filling in there until they get their job. They're working while they're going to go to work, right? So they're taking orders and delivering Chinese food until they get the big job. But they got their university degree. But the Asians are the most, they're always at the top of the charts educationally and employment-wise. It doesn't have anything to do with DNA. They just work about 40% harder than any white person would. So the overall employment rate right now is 4.1%. The number of jobs created in December alone was 148,000. Now the government is not creating any jobs. Barack Obama, because he wouldn't know a job if it hit him in the face. He never create. He always talk about we got these shovel-ready jobs. You know something? The guy was such a fraud. It just anything he said was baloney. ISIS is the JV team. We're going to have a beer summit. Just like, and liberals just stood there with their mouth open, waiting anything he wanted to stick in it. So government, with Trump saying, I get it. I've been in business. I've been harassed by government. We're going to eliminate these rules that are stupid rules. Like you got to have tampons in every bathroom or half the bathrooms, or on and on and on. Have you been seeing this on Facebook or on social media that Oregon prohibited, you couldn't pump your own gas in Oregon? Did you know that? Have you been up there? I haven't been up there in so long. They just changed that. And now there's only one state in the union where it's mandated. Now, what is the logic that you mandate? Only government can come up with be that stupid that you force people to hire someone to take the spigot and put it in the hose and put it in your tank and then take it out and hang it up. Unbelievable. In Vietnam, they do that. You drive up on your motorbike, you got this little bitty tank you're going to put gas in. It's just like 1 gallon. It holds 1 gallon. You got to have the guy come over there with his gloves on and all this stuff, put it in, and you pay them right there. It's just the crazy. It's just, you only realize how stupid you are when you don't get out much, and everybody's been joking about people in Oregon can't figure out how to pump their own gas. Now there's been all these liberals just making a big it's so hilarious. Oh yeah, sure. These big companies, it's interesting. You go buy all your iPhones, you liberals, and all that kind of stuff. Buy your cars, your iPhones, all your stuff. But then you trash these companies like you're a communist or something. And you said, oh, yeah, $1,000. Who wants $1,000? I said, I'll take $100. I'll take $100 bonus. How about $100? $50. So more than 100 U.S. companies, you wonder how they found out about all this? The Americans for Tax Reform, it's an organization. It's a taxpayer advocacy group, Americans for Tax Reform, or ATR. They put the word out and they said, please, if you're a company, let us know if this tax cut is going to change the way you're doing business. So companies are contacting them, reporting what they're going to do, and 100 U.S. companies are giving their employees up to $2,000 in bonuses. So I'm going to give you, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to give you some ideas so it's just not BS like Obama's BS. All right, we'll be right back.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute.
When John wrote The Word Became Flesh, he was talking about Jesus Christ. At 10 weeks inside Mary's womb, he had perfectly formed little hands and feet that would be pierced for our sins. A tiny heart was already beating that would someday hold enough love for all of mankind. His then 2 minuscule eyes would penetrate our souls and see our sin-stained need for his sacrifice. Already then, he had arms to embrace the poor, lame, and blind, a mouth that would preach the gift he came to give, and a gentle touch to heal the sick and send evil spirits fleeing before his presence. Yes, the unborn child Jesus Christ was much more than flesh and blood. He was also King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Let him be yours.
For more information, visit our website at lifeissues.org and stay informed, more informed than you've ever been.
Hi, I'm Mary, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is President of Hillsdale College, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To receive a free pocket Constitution and Declaration, go to constitutionminute.com.
Hello, Liberty-loving patriots. This is Chrisanne Hall, Liberty's lobbyist and founder of Liberty First University. If Samuel Adams were still alive, he'd be sure to tune in to Live with Lou every Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon, right here on KMYC 1410 a.m. The Patriot. And so should you. You can also catch my show Monday through Friday on ctnlifestyle.com.
My fellow Americans, as we approach the final days of the year, it is truly incredible to think of how much we have accomplished on our journey together. Since the election, we have created more than 2 million jobs for hardworking, wonderful families and wonderful Americans. Unemployment is at a 17-year low. The stock market is at an all-time high and continues to go up, up, up. We want to keep it going. We've liberated the American economy from the Washington overreach, cutting 22 regulations for every one new regulation, the most in the history of our country by far. And just last week, we delivered a big, beautiful Christmas present to the American people. Congress passed massive tax cuts for millions of working American families and small businesses and large businesses. And those large businesses in particular, coupled with others, are going to create jobs, jobs, jobs. Our tax plan is focused on the middle class, including a near doubling of the standard deduction and a huge increase in the child tax credit. A typical family of four earning $75,000 will see their tax bill cut in half, 1/2 of what you are paying. And Americans will begin seeing these tax cuts in their paychecks starting in February. In addition, our border is now strong. We'll be building the wall. Your Second Amendment is safe. We're unlocking America's vast energy resources. We've restored enforcement of immigration laws, taken the fight right to MS-13 and getting them out of the country. And we are now working with Congress to end chain migration and the visa lottery program, which is terrible and brings in people that we don't want in our country. I'm very proud of the choice of Justice Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. And we are reshaping the entire judiciary for many decades to come. Congress has authorized funding for our military at near record levels so that we can rebuild our full military might after years of dangerous cuts and depletion of our military. We've made historic strides in the fight against the murderous terror group known as ISIS. Today, the coalition to defeat ISIS has recaptured nearly 100% of the territory once held by these vile terrorists in Iraq and Syria. We are rebuilding our nation, rebuilding our confidence, and rebuilding our standing in the world. Today, the entire world can see that America is coming back and coming back strong. The American people are excited about the future and the incredible possibilities that await all of us. Optimism is everywhere. Enthusiasm is booming. And the thrilling American adventure has never looked brighter. We are facing old challenges with new solutions, and we are seizing new opportunities with brimming confidence and boundless resolve. Because of you, your patriotism, your devotion, your love for your family, we will be able to pass on the blessings of American liberty and prosperity to our children and our grandchildren. Together, we are protecting our magnificent heritage and reaching for glorious destiny. Finally, Melania and I want to wish every American a very happy new year. Our country is great. Our country is strong. We're doing things that nobody thought possible. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to help. God bless you, and God bless America.
All right. Well, we're into the second half. Wikiman got a text from a couple that were Tea Party folks and also Jefferson State supporters who couldn't take California any longer, and they moved to Idaho. And they texted to say they're listening live stream. So we'll give you a shout out over there. Thanks for listening from Idaho. And you're not the only ones I know from Idaho that have moved from our area and just took their skills and their income. What we know is happening in California, even though maybe the population figures show an increase, what's happening is there's a couple types of migrations going on. People that pay taxes, are law-abiding, and are working for a living are moving out of the state. And people that are violating the law, are coming in illegally, and not paying their fair share, are moving in. So you have more moochers and fewer providers as they're moving to other states where there are less regulations, less stupid laws, like having to fund tampons and all other kinds of nonsense. Fund ideas like we need to know the sexual preference of Emily Dickinson, the poet, or we're not going to be able to live another day without it. So that's the stupidity of it. But thank you for listening over there in Idaho, and we'll try to keep the fires burning in the bunker up here at Mount Huth. So we were talking about the fact that the liberals can't find anything right about Trump. In fact, the latest week or two, they're trying to convince everyone that the president is mentally ill. No one ever accused Obama about this, although everybody was wondering whether he was having sex with both species, both sides of the species, and had a prayer rug in the back room. You couldn't find out what his grades were. You talk about a screwy guy. It looked like he wore women's jeans. I don't know. You know, you would think that would be the person you'd think about being deranged, as opposed to a person who has accomplished all these amazing things that Obama says was impossible. In a town hall meeting, he said it was impossible to recoup manufacturing jobs. Those jobs were old jobs that were lost forever to other countries, right before Trump was elected. So now the liberals are saying that 1 million Americans receiving bonuses is nonsense, and it doesn't amount to much anyway. I want you to just think about this. A lot of families economists say a lot of families are 1 month away from bankruptcy. In other words, if they lost their job, they have about 1 month worth of money left in the bank, and then they would be in real trouble. So I'm just going to rattle off a few things here. What's happening is these companies are writing in. This Aon says, we are very appreciative of all the employees. Our employees want to commemorate the passing of this historic economy-stimulating tax reform law. They're giving 2,000 employees $1,000 each. AT&T is giving $1,000 bonuses to 200,000 employees, and AT&T is spending $1 billion expansion in capital expenditures, okay? AccuWeather, you've heard of AccuWeather. You can go on the website and find out what your weather is. They're giving year-end bonuses to all employees, about 500 employees. I won't read you all what they wrote. They wrote in and explained how much they appreciate their employees, etc. Aflac, you've heard about Aflac, the little duck that runs around. They're increasing their 401k match from 50 to 100% on the first 4% of compensation, plus a one-time contribution to every employee's 401k. And they're going to give a $250 million increase in overall U.S. investment. Alaska Airlines is giving $1,000 bonuses to 22,000 employees. American Airlines are giving $1,000 bonuses for every employee, excluding officers. The 127,600 employees will get $1,000 each. That's $130 million or so. Again, I won't read the remarks from their presidents. They're pretty amazing remarks. American Bank, $1,000 bonuses for 60 employees. American Savings Banks, same amount for 1,150 employees. They're raising their minimum wage from $12.21 to $15.25. American Financial Holdings, $1,000 bonuses to 95 employees. Let's see. There's hundreds of these. Bank of America, $1,000 bonuses to 145,000 U.S. employees. Bank of Hawaii, $1,000 bonuses to 2,074 employees, also increasing the minimum wage from $12 to $15 per hour. Bank of the Ozarks, $1,200 bonuses to 2,300 employees. BB&T, $1,200 bonuses to 27,000 employees. Boeing, this is a mind blower here. Boeing is going to give $100 million in charitable donations, and $100 million for workforce development, and $100 million for infrastructure and facilities. Listen, people, if this doesn't get your attention, you just don't care about the country. Central Bank of St. Louis, 2,500 employees will get $1,000 bonuses. Part-time employees will even get $500 employee bonuses. Let's see. Charlotte Pipe and Foundering Company, $1,000 bonuses for 1,400 employees. Citizens Financial Group, $1,000 bonuses for 12,500 employees and $10 million in charitable contributions. Comcast, $1,000 bonuses for 100,000 employees, at least $50 billion investment in infrastructure over the next 5 years. Listen, people, this is a huge phenomenon that's going on. When that $1,000 gets in people's pockets, that's going to jack the entire economy up because they're going to buy clothes, shoes, food, everything. That's going to churn right back into the economy. I mean, I can just go on and on here. 3,450 Commerce Bank employees, $1,000 bonus. A lot of banks. Copperleaf, let's see, Community Trust Bank Corp, $1,000 bonuses for full-time employees. Doesn't list how many. I'm just down to the D's. This goes all the way to Z. And there's 100 or 200 of these things. $2,000 bonuses for express employment professionals to more than 200 non-executive employees. $2,000 bonuses. Fifth Third Bank Corp, $1,000 bonuses for 13,500 employees. It's just on and on. This is so amazing, particularly when you say Gate City Bank. Check this out. 1,000 hand-delivered bonus checks to 538 non-management personnel, $500,000 increase in charitable giving, $500,000 worth of free home appraisals for, obviously, they deal in the home sale business. So Great Southern Bank Corp, 1,200 employees will receive a bonus, $1,000 for full-time, $500 part-time. It's just amazing. It's a phenomenon. And so I don't care what flavor you are. I don't care whether you're socialist, communist, you hate everybody. You got to hate people. These are people that are getting this money, and you may hate big business. What you should hate is big government, because business employs people, they help people. Not every business, maybe you had a bad experience with an employer, not every business hates their employees. In Navient, there's a business called Navient, Navient. 98% of Navient's 6,700 employees will receive a $1,000 bonus. And all of them have write-ups here on why they're doing it. It's just on and on and on and on and on. $1,000 bonuses for 260. Most of them are $1,000 bonuses. Some are $2,000 bonuses. They're increasing their starting wage. Just on and on. Very good news. It's very good news for the entire country. It's going to affect, if you got any kind of business in any community that can hear this radio broadcast, you're going to benefit from people having an extra $1,000. They're going to go out and buy something. They're going to paint their house. They're going to remodel. They're going to buy new furnishings. They're maybe going to put a down payment on a vehicle. They're going to do something with that $1,000, and that's going to benefit the entire country. So very, very good news. I went through all of these looking at the various companies, and there's literally thousands of companies. I don't know, maybe hundreds of thousands of companies. Chamber of Commerce should have all those records, and a lot of them probably aren't going to get around to even checking in and telling what they're doing. But I'm hoping more and more do, so we can find out what's going on. As Donald Trump said at the commercial break, he said we have no idea how huge of an impact this is going to be. It's going to be phenomenal. Now here's I mentioned this earlier. Apple themselves, this is just one company, is repatriating $200 billion in cash stashed in foreign countries. And they're leaving they had $252 billion in their cash portfolio in foreign nations. They're bringing $200 million of it back. That's also going to have a huge beneficial impact, because that money's going to be in banks those banks will then have the ability to loan based upon those deposits, as well as maybe even generate interest on those deposits. It's just a huge, huge healthy impact and a refreshing of the finances of this nation. So a couple of my friends who support this show, Ted Holmes, who runs a number of businesses in town. He's had Holmes Construction, Ted Holmes Construction. He's also had Liftoff Floor Removal, which has been, he started that from scratch. He started his construction business from scratch. And he also has the Plumbing Doctor, and they support this show. And I've talked to Ted over the years, and his difficulty in finding good plumbers to work for the Plumbing Doctor. But they do good work. They respond 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And they quote you the job, and that's what they stick with. They're a very good company. Ted's a very honest guy. I've known Ted for 40 years. He's a very close friend of mine. I just call him, and when I leave town, if I need something fixed, I just give him the key to the house and say, just get it on over there. The same people, we're all friends actually together. Dave Greenitz is another one with Greenitz Construction. He's one of the finest remodelers in the area. Just his kitchen and bath remodels are par excellence. And also, if you don't like the entryway to your house, he'll put a new entryway front door in and upgrade that. He also puts in whole house fans. He does a lot of different things. But he's brought up the same thing. This whole thing of excessive regulation, both Ted Holmes and Dave Greenitz are about the same age. They say that, Lou, if they've been here around this area for about 40 years. They came out here in the 70s. And they say the same thing. If we had to start all over in our business today, we would move. We'd move like this other couple just texted us that we would move to Idaho. We'd move to some other state where there's more opportunity and much, much less regulation and taxation. It's just very difficult to do business here. And so Dave Greenitz has the same problems that every business has. Egregious harassment from government, and very difficult to find people that are skilled and in the construction industry. These guys make good money. They've also and even during the downturn in the economy, they stayed working because they have great reputations. So if you want to give somebody some business, that would be Greenitz Construction. Tell Dave that you heard it on Live with Lou. He might give you a discount, what I call the deadhead discount. Dave Greenitz was an old deadhead, Grateful Dead follower before he learned the construction business. Ted Holmes is a great guy. If you can even get a hold of him through the Plumbing Doctor or Liftoff Floor Removal. If you need a floor removed, like you have tile floor and you need it all busted up so you can put something different down, or old glue down carpet or whatever, you have a mall or you have a large business, they can fix you up there too. So all these guys are benefiting by this business boom, and anybody that wants to work should be able to work. And that's what's, to me, I just love that. I don't care if Barack Obama would have pulled off all this off, I would have been singing his praises here the same. I don't care what flavor they are, D or R or C for communist. I don't care if you can pull off thriving, reducing people on welfare, reducing people on the dependent on the government. Nobody wants to be dependent. People want to be independent. People want to be free. People want to be people of liberty. They don't want this government on your back telling you what you got to do left and right, etc. So, well, okay. I wanted to mention, have you noticed how dry it's been? We had a little rain here the last couple of days, but it's been dry. I even mentioned earlier in the show that it hadn't rained for, I'm told down in L.A. for a year it hasn't rained. But the government of this state, no matter what they tell you, many of you continue to believe the lie that they are that they're going to take this $7.2 billion water bond and the other water bonds, billions of dollars in water bond, and they're going to create more water resources. It's just 100% lie. If you smell a little manure, that's because you're getting buried in it, because Jerry Brown and the liberals are liars. And they are not going to build any more water resources. They're not going to build any dams. There's no dams being drawn up. There's been talk you could increase the size of Shasta Dam. They're not going to increase the size of Shasta. They don't like this whole thing of, in fact, there's talk of tearing down dams. Did you know that? Tearing down dams. All that water, all that excess water, that amazing amount of water that came down last year, it just ran right out to sea. Do you know we could have held some of that back and saved some of that for hard times? But no, we got a crazy government. But you keep voting for them out there. That's why we got them. So anyway, this coming week, we were talking about at one of the breaks, Santos and I, that we heard we got this rain gauge. We had to move it under the hole in the roof just because we're interested. We kind of like to report how much water's coming down. So this week, we're supposed to get an inch or two rain. So, the meteorologists or the climate people or the water people with the state of California, they said, Doug Carlson, he says he's a spokesperson for the Department of Water Resources. He says, we're back into that old waiting game, but he said, don't panic. It's not too late to get lots and lots of water. So I'm not panicking. I know God's in control. And you think, oh, well, Lou, that's just a scapegoat. You know something? Let me tell you something. Whether you believe it or not, like I tell people in jail, I said, whether you believe it or not, whether the sun goes around the earth goes around the sun, that sun's going to come up whether you believe it or not. And so we were right in the middle of that drought, and I mean, there wasn't no meteorologist around the globe that was going to call a rain shower coming our way. It was dry, and you had California water service here in Marysville. All these water services were putting you on rationing and then penalizing you for saving water. They were damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you use too much, you didn't use hardly any, you paid through the nose either way. And you had all these water cops running around the neighborhood, and Bobby Conner stood right on the stage out there at the church I attend, Glad Tidings, on Saturday night, and he stopped right in the middle of he wasn't even talking about water or weather. He was preaching along about something, and he said, I just wanted to tell you, God told me that we're going to have a water miracle. And I thought, I had lost so much confidence in rain. I was talking to Dave Bryan out there. I said, well, God brought water up out of the earth. Did you know they were drilling for water in Nevada one time? They were drilling for something over there in the geothermal area, and they hit, and it's never stopped. It's just blowing right out of the, it's in Washoe County, it's high mineral geothermal, and they hit a fissure down there, and it's just never stopped. And so I was asking Dave Bryan out there at Glad Tidings, I said, Dave, how do you think that water miracle is going to happen? Because I was so given up on rain, right? It hadn't rained so long. And I said, do you think that water will come right out and fill Oroville Dam from down below? Because, we used to hunt deer up there above Collins Reservoir, Virginia Ranch Dam, Collins Reservoir. And where we used to camp, there used to be a spring. And a spring is just water that just comes right out of the ground. It's just clear as can be. It's not near a stream. It just comes out of the ground. It's called a spring. And there were watercress around there, and we used to dip water out of there, and that's how we got water for our camp. And so I thought that's what was going to happen because there's just no water coming. There wasn't any prediction of any storms. They predict out months ahead. And then all of a sudden, all heaven broke loose, and it rained, and busted the spillway and just blew out everything and filled all these things to 100, 110%. And we had a water miracle. And Bobby Conner, I think he's coming back to Glad Tidings the next few months. He has predicted national incidences of miracles over and over again because God speaks to him. Why should he speak to him? I don't know. He's just a converted old hellion is what he is. So, but anyway, God's in control of this thing, and we all were praying. I don't know what you did back there in that drought, but we just gave up on everybody else. We gave up on Governor Brown, all those the perverts down there that instead of doing something really smart, they all got their hands up people's dresses and stuff down there in Sacramento. And I got a lot more confidence in and we just started praying for rain. We didn't dance for it. We didn't smoke weed over it. We just prayed for it. And here it came. Bobby Conner prophesied it, and boom, shakalaka, it happened. All right, we're coming right back. We got another hour to go. All right. Well, before we get down to the end today, we got about an hour left. I want to do a couple things. One, I want to remind you about the Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots meeting on January 15th, where James Gallagher is going to be there. And I've been thinking about this Department of Water Resources being found at fault for not managing the dam, not doing the proper maintenance, and not doing due diligence. And I've pondered a lot about what it costs everybody to have to evacuate. I know many people spent a couple $1,000s probably in hotel rooms and eating out and the expense of fleeing a long ways from home and losing business. And I'm wondering whether the state of California couldn't give all those people $1,000 or $2,000 to help them out because they created the problem. Now, you see whether government is going to be responsible and being held accountable, or are all these people going to have to file a class action lawsuit against the state of California for mismanaging that dam? Now, James Gallagher, who's the assemblyman for our area, for Yuba Sutter counties at least, I can't speak for some of those others. I can't remember whether he's a Butte County representative or not. He's going to be it. And even if he's not, James has taken on and has been pretty diligent about this water issue and the dam issue and who's responsible and how to fix it. So this is your chance to see him and have a dialogue with him, not just hear a speech. It'll be a small enough atmosphere where you can actually have a dialogue back and forth and ask questions. So go to the meeting on the 15th, and maybe we can make this a real community forum on the dam and on what's going to be shaken up here in the next year or two for James Gallagher's job. And so that's at Church of Glad Tidings campus, what they call the Embassy campus, but the sign out front says Church of Glad Tidings, 1179 Eager Road, just north of Yuba City at the corner of the off-ramp, the Eager Road off-ramp off of 99. It's in Building 200. It starts at 6:30. I think you'll really enjoy it, and I think you should go to it. I think it's going to be I won't be in town, but I'd like to go to it. I'm going to be overseas. But the other thing I want to mention with the Tea Party is this celebration. And I think, hey, you know something? We've had 8 years of depression. You ever notice that? You think maybe you work for an employer and you change employers and you think, oh, man, this is good over here at this place. You think, I didn't know I was so bummed out at that other place. Anyway, it's time to celebrate. You know, let's celebrate 1 year of people going back to work, less regulations, extra $1,000 in a lot of your pockets from a bonus, or less taxes. In other words, the government's going to run on less of your money. It's all your money. They're going to run on less of it. So let's celebrate. The Tea Party is going to have their meeting with Gallagher on the 15th of January. And then on the 20th, at 6:30 at night at 2 Bits Cafe in Yuba City. That's right there off the corner of 99 and 20 where Red Robin and Food Max and all those are, 2 Bits Cafe. They're going to have a buffet. You buy your tickets ahead of time. It's $20 a piece. They're going to have music, a dinner, a buffet dinner, lots of good times, and it's from 6:30 to 9:30. So dancing, if you're a dancer, or whatever you want to do, just shout and have a good time, celebrate. Second annual Deplorable, they're calling it, the second annual Deplorable. So Sutter Butte's Tea Party Patriots, and so here's how you get your tickets. You can call Bill at 415-0343, 415-0343, or 701-2845 for Tammy, 701-2845, and get your tickets. And you got to get those in advance. They say they're not selling any at the door, which makes sense because they need to know how much food to prepare in advance. So here's some of the things that they say they're going to celebrate. Withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, ongoing removal of government regulations, the wall being developed or getting under construction, immigration reform, or actually enforcing the law, reducing the amount of refugees coming in, businesses are returning to the U.S., jobs are increasing, 1 million jobs added, 13,000, actually it's up to 16,000 jobs eliminated from the federal government, and on and on and on. Come to celebrate, deplore a ball, January 20th, 6:30 at night. You got that? All right. The other thing is, you guys wanting jobs, you ladies wanting jobs, go get them. You can get them at my friends over at the Elite Universal Security. And there's no, why sit at home and be bored and be dependent on the government? Go get you a job and move on up, make some money out there. You could go to the API Academy, api-academy.com, and go get some training. And so, they're going to give you, that new law is going to give you free education at Yuba College, but you got to take a full load of credits. If you can't afford to do that, you can take one class at a time over here at API Academy and start getting trained and become a guard. And the cool thing is you could go and continue your schooling and be a guard and do both, right? A lot of my friends are going to school, and I have a friend who runs her own business, and at night she goes to McGeorge Law School to become an attorney. And during the day, she runs a paralegal business. So you can do 2 or 3 things at a time in America. It's okay. They don't have a law against that yet. So you can take pepper spray training, guard card training, handcuff. You can learn all about being a guard. Or if you're got some of the skills already, you can just get yourself a job. And you can call Elite Security, 749-0280. Just go get some money. Go out there and go to work, man. Just don't buy this liberal baloney that you don't have to work and you can just sit and color and paint pictures all day or do something stupid, smoke weed all day. I don't know what you guys, did you notice that there was a commercial on there that talked about the new laws as well as I was talking about the new laws? Oh, what's that mean? How does that affect us? The computer froze up? We're all right? Oh, we can't run that deal. Okay. All right. Well, our computer froze up. So I was going to play you a clip with Chris Ann Hall, but we'll see if we can get it back up later. But I got plenty to talk about. So let's see. Forgot where I was at when he was trying to straighten me out. But let's see. So I just want to encourage. Oh, we were talking about marijuana. And all these people are so excited about getting marijuana, and you have all these different parts of the marijuana scheme. Like you got people that are really sick, and they believe that marijuana is relieving their symptoms. They have a debilitating illness. I don't have any problem with that. If you want to eat the bark off an almond tree and it helps you, God bless you, right? Like, who cares, right? If you're suffering. I remember my mom, she had cancer. She was so screwed up at the end. She was knocking down flasks, these shot glasses full of morphine. I thought, more power to her, man. I don't want any of that pain either. So then you got people that it's just a big old fraud, and they're talking about, oh, I got a backache. I had kids in juvenile hall talking, oh, Lou, you need to get that 215 card. I have one. I got a back problem. It's just unbelievable. It's going to take a generation or so to see the total fallout from all this. Colorado was already freaking out. So, I want you to just think about Yuba County. They say, they being the authorities of Yuba County, police, sheriff department, Sheriff Durfer, folks that are in the know, they say there may be over 1,000 grows up there in Yuba County. you know. And you remember when they passed that ordinance, not this current one, but the past one, where remember when they we expanded government, right? And we hired all these code enforcement guys, and the idea was that the salaries of those code enforcement guys was going to be paid by the permit fees for people to grow medical marijuana in their homes. And did you know that hardly anybody even came and got a fee? We hired all those code enforcement guys, and now they're out trying to enforce the codes, but nobody's paying anything. They just said, screw you. That's what they said. So basically, we now have two groups of people in Yuba County. We have the marijuana people flipping us the bird, and then we got the homeless people flipping us the bird. And I just talking to two supervisors from Yuba County who said right down here on Simpson Lane that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean up all the garbage along there, along the peach orchard, between the peach orchard and the river, the Yuba River. Now they're back there. I talked to Dale Whitmore the other day, city councilman. He said they're already back at all these camps, and they're trying to resettle them. Now, we'll see. Now, this is government. This is what you pay government for, what you and I pay government for. The founding fathers said we need a little bit of government to protect us from foreign invaders and gnarly folks in our community, because Jesus hadn't returned yet to settle everything, so we got to keep the lid on this sucker. And so that was the reason for government. It wasn't to hand out condoms, tampons, food, housing, Section 8 housing, right? It wasn't to remind me to wear a hat on a hot day or to drink a couple liters of water on a hot day. We had no need of that. We figured people are smart enough to figure that out. If they see a couple people drop dead on a hot day, they'll think, maybe that guy should have drank more water. Instead, we pay people hundreds of thousands of dollars to come on the radio and inform us it's going to be 105 tomorrow. Drink water and wear a hat and long sleeve shirt. Put on sunscreen. Thank you, Jesus. I don't know how to come up with that conclusion on my own. So we have all this government that is just sucking the life out of everything. And so what we have is two groups of people right now just flipping the bird to the government, and that is the homeless folks that will not go into a rehab, will not go into a shelter, will not do anything, will not get off drugs to get it. They just want to live wherever they want to live, ignore all the rules, laws, and have you pay for it and clean up after them. Right? You come into Marysville over the East Street Bridge and you look down to the right, you see a whole camp developing down there and piles of garbage developing. And it's interesting because right before this show, there was a recorded clip with Supervisor Randy Fletcher interviewing one of these environmentalists, right? And talking about forests and keeping the forests and keeping the ecology. And right before us, we allow people, hundreds and hundreds of people, to dump their garbage in the river. How stupid is that? But right now we have two groups of people. We got the marijuana people that are dumping chemicals out on the ground that aren't even allowed to be used in California, and spraying and killing wildlife up there because they don't want them to trample on or eat their marijuana. And then we have the homeless people, and we have no control over it. It's interesting, huh? And yet that's the only role the government was supposed to do. But they got handing out welfare down. They do a really good job at that. And all the other stuff telling me I got to wear a hat on a hot day. So we got our computer going. We're back in business. So I want to play a clip that I tried to play last week, and I ran out of time. I didn't. Well, time wasn't the problem. I just talked too much. So is my problem. But I wanted to play you a clip by one of my favorite ladies that is an expert on the Constitution. She used to be I don't know whether she was a federal prosecutor or state prosecutor. State for Florida, wasn't it Florida? And she started teaching on the Constitution and speaking at tea parties, and they said either stop that or we're going to fire you, because the government is not interested in the Constitution anymore. Did you know that? If you didn't, you're just a bit behind the learning curve. So KrisAnne Hall teaches about the Constitution. She speaks really plainly. So a lot of times people talk about, well, we're a democracy, we're a democracy, we're a democracy. And I want you to listen to her talk about democracy or a republic.
It is common to hear America called a democracy. However, America is not a democracy. She is a constitutional republic. Some may claim there is really no difference between a democracy and a republic, but that is a false claim. Maybe if Americans understood the difference between a democracy and a republic, people wouldn't just roll their eyes and shake their heads when they hear politicians, talking heads, and professors call us a democracy. Americans would be upset. The founders of America established America as a constitutional republic for one main reason. Their ultimate goal was to preserve liberty for future generations. They knew from their own personal experience that a kingdom style of government doesn't preserve liberty. When you live in a kingdom, the king holds all the power, and he's the one to hand out the rights and the privileges to the people as he sees fit. When the king has the power to give, he also holds the power to take away. When you live in a kingdom, you only get what you have. You only keep what you have with permission of the king. A constitutional republic is the opposite of a kingdom. In a constitutional republic, the people have the authority to give government power, and they have the authority to take it away. The Declaration says, and whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish. Because in a constitutional republic, laws are made with the consent of the people through their representatives, who are constrained by the rule of law. The people are to have equal representation and equal voice. It is this principle of equality and equal representation that makes a constitutional republic the only government that can secure liberty. But where does a democracy fit in this analysis? You've got your kingdom over here. You've got your republic, or your constitutional republic over here. Where does the democracy fit? Is it similar to a republic? Is it somewhere in between a republic and a kingdom? In truth, there is really not much difference at all between a democracy and a kingdom. The only real difference between a democracy and a kingdom is how many people rule over you. In a kingdom, specifically a monarchy, the rule comes from one person. In a democracy, the rule comes from those who hold the most power. In spite of what we are taught, a democracy does not operate upon the principles of equality. Quite the opposite. A democracy operates with mob rule. Those who have the most power, or those who have the most people in their group, are the rulers over the minority. In a democracy, those in a majority hold all the power. And they hand out all the privileges and the rights to those in the minority. So if you live in a democracy and you are in a minority group, you have nothing unless the majority says you can have it. And you only keep what you have as long as the majority says you can keep it. If America were a democracy, Rosa Parks would still be sitting in the back of the bus or in a jail cell. In a democracy, minority groups never have a society-changing voice. That only happens when the government acknowledges that all men are created equal, and all laws must be created to ensure equal liberty and justice under those laws. A kingdom does not preserve liberty. It only preserves the power of the king and the servitude of the people. And a democracy does not preserve liberty. It only ensures that there will always be masters and always be slaves. Only in a constitutional republic is the government the subject of the people, and all people, even those in minority groups, can have a society-changing voice. If we want to make America great again, we must know who we are and where we came from.
We must ensure that government knows its proper place and the people know that their liberty and the liberty of our future is what we must secure. We must get educated to get liberated.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. I don't think that's taught in our public schools anymore, and I think even those of us who got that teaching way back there probably didn't have enough brain cells to attach to political understanding, what I mean, to get that. And right now what we're tending to be is act like a democracy, and the Constitution doesn't make any difference, and whoever has the most votes gets it, right? Gets to control everything. So, let's see. I just want to think through what I want to say. One of the interesting article I ran across was a guy named Don Rosenberg, whose son, Drew Rosenberg, was killed in a traffic accident. Drew Rosenberg was driving a motorcycle, and a fellow named, an illegal immigrant named Roberto Gallo, was driving a vehicle, and Gallo decided to make a last-second turn and ran over Rosenberg and caught him under the vehicle, but just kept to try to get away because he didn't want to get caught. He kept running over him to try to get him out from under his car. And Gallo fled and then eventually abandoned his car and fled again. Eventually was apprehended, and Rosenberg died. Drew Rosenberg was killed. Gallo was stopped by the San Francisco police months earlier for driving without a license and going the wrong way down a one-way street. Instead of being arrested as an illegal alien, he was cited and released. So then he runs over this young man, Drew Rosenberg, kills him. He was charged originally with vehicular manslaughter or vehicular homicide, but then had his charges reduced to a misdemeanor, vehicular manslaughter. And Gallo, the guy, the illegal immigrant, spent a total of 43 days in jail for killing Drew Rosenberg and was allowed to continue to live in the United States for 2 years more until he was finally deported. Don Rosenberg, Drew's father, contacted the Obama administration to try to get some justice, and he said they never even responded to him. So I'm looking for this quote to this. I want you to put yourself in this father's position, and that, you know, maybe you have a Kate Steinle daughter who was murdered. Others have had their grandkids or kids murdered in San Francisco, where the people got very little punishment for that, and they were killed by illegals. I want to give you this quote from Don Rosenberg. This is the kind of pain that people feel when the government is unjust. He says, "I wish Governor Brown would get on the bullet train, first stop to hell, and he should get off and stay there." In other words, he just hopes Brown drops dead and goes to hell quickly. He said his concern for criminals, be they legal or not, is outrageous and has cost the lives of many Californians. So all you that are remaining in California, other than my Idaho friends who are listening today. That's something to think about, and it's going to take a lot of you to get lathered up to throw out enough people in this legislature to make a change, because we could make a change and turn this thing around, but it's going to take a lot of people outside my reach here by radio, unless they're listening online, to get inspired to turn this thing around, do something different than have a sanctuary state. So something to think about. Along with that, Kate Steinle's murder got off with time served, and so he's still in jail only because there is a federal hold on him. They're going to retry him at the federal level, which is good news, and hopefully he won't see the outdoors for many, many years in fighting that trial. Let's see. Have you heard about the Bundy, Clive and Bundy? You've been following the Clive and Bundy? Amazing. The government of this United States held this Bundy family and other co-conspirators, they would say, for nearly 2 years or over 2 years, been 2 years or so. No bail. Claimed they were very dangerous. These people are farmers. These people are not the Cedeños, the Nuteños, the Hmong Nation, or the white supremacists. These people are farmers, cattle farmers, dairy farmers, sheep herders, and they were proclaimed dangerous, too dangerous to give any bail to. They have held them without bail, and both court cases, the Portland court case ended up not guilty, and the Nevada court case ended up in mistrial because of the government lied and cheated. And I'll tell you a little bit more about it after the break. We'll be right back for our last half hour.
Bringing new meaning to the term first responders.
Fellow community members stepping forward, volunteering their time to help others faced with what might be some of the most traumatic incidents in their lives.
It's called the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP. It's been used in communities across the United States for years, and its volunteers have been dispatched to provide what they call emotional first aid.
A collaboration between police, paramedics, fire departments, and even hospital staff is making sure residents are emotionally taken care of in a time of crisis. Residents are volunteering their time with the Trauma Intervention Program, or TIP, dispatched to the scene of a fire, accident, or death to focus on the emotional needs of those left behind.
It's just being there and being comforting, like a good friend or an extension of your family.
Ready to assist, sit, and listen to community members in a time of tragedy.
To learn more about the Trauma Intervention Program, visit yubasuttertip.org or call 673-9300.
right. Lou Benninger here. We're heading towards the finish line here at noon, and then there'll be a sports talk program come on. So I was just making some comments about the Bundys. If you wonder whether or not there are political prisoners in the United States like there have been in other countries, like in Russia, China, Vietnam, South Africa, we have them. And they're farmers and ranchers that are being run off their land by the Bureau of Land Management. The Bureau of Land Management, which was created long after many of these ranch families, farm families, were already on this land. They didn't actually own it. It was state land that was state allowed them to lease the land, lease the rights, the water rights, the rights to graze on this land, farm it. And so the Bureau of Land Management then took over these lands, the oversight of them, and now decided under the United Nations Agenda 21 agenda, the rewilding agenda, the somebody else who had more money influenced them to get the farmers off the land and let them use it. So they're trying to force families off these lands that have had them for the late 1800s. And so the Bundys and the Hammonds and many others are families that are now going to jail. The Mr. Hammond and his son are in jail up in Portland for lighting a fire, a controlled burn on their property that got over into some government lands. That happens all the time here. Farmers will start a fire and the fire gets away from them. It happens all the time. Nobody goes to jail. But they wanted them to go to jail because they want their property from them. The Bundys are in jail because they want to take their property from them. They've actually have what they call a kill list, the Bureau of Land Management, on the families they want to push off the land and destroy. The government lied about the whole Bundy situation. They withheld thousands of pages. When I say the government, the Department of Justice withheld thousands of pages of evidence from the defense. And the judge in Las Vegas, Gloria Navarro, a U.S. District Court Judge Gloria M. Navarro, declared a mistrial. And now the Department of Justice, it's now under Jeff Sessions. It was a different, he took over for Loretta Lynch. She was the last Attorney General, but she's the one who put the clamps and tried to put all these people in jail. And now we have Jeff Sessions. So we'll see whether in the next couple of weeks the government has announced they're going to retry this. The Department of Justice. We'll see whether that's going to hang correctly with Trump and Jeff Sessions. I hope they just drop the whole thing and let people go back to work. The Bureau of Land Management, if you look at the footprint of the Bureau of Land Management on the United States of America, you'll notice that in the western states, the Bureau of Land Management is overseeing up to 90% of the property in some states. Like, for instance, Nevada. Nevadans are located in pretty consolidated areas, and then the rest of it's very rural. So the Bureau of Land Management is controlling over 90% of the property in Nevada. California, I think it's something like 60%. So it's amazing the amount of control that they have over these properties. That's why in the Tahoe National Forest in El Dorado County, Sheriff John Agostini, had to tell the federal foresters that to take off their weapons and to quit citing El Dorado County people. He said, you don't have any arresting jurisdiction in my county because you're harassing people. So at some point, counties like Clark County, Nevada, which is where Las Vegas is, where Cliven Bundy has his ranch, the county needs to take a stand. We'll see whether they will or not. Let's go over to homelessness, and we'll talk about that for a few more minutes.
Next, politicians.
You know, the
promise
Bible
number
talks
3.
a lot
They're
about
gonna solve
our personal
energy
responsibility
problem.
to
You
the
know,
poor.
we're running out of this, or we buy
It
too
doesn't
much of
really
it from Arab
define
sheiks.
exactly what the
Their
poor
solution,
are. It
take
talks
your
about
money and
orphans.
give it to
It talks
Americans
about
who make
widows.
ethanol.
Renewable,
talks about the poor, the homeless.
Ethanol subsidies bring
but
both
I don't
parties
know
together.
whether it's always
After
the same
all,
definition as the
Americans
type
can
of
grow
folks
it
we
and
have today
create
in our
a
welfare
nation that is stronger, cleaner, and
socialist
more
system of
secure.
government. So, but it does talk about we have a personal responsibility, and it never says it's the government's responsibility.
Now is the time.
We have a personal
No, it's
responsibility
not.
towards
Corn-based
towards
ethanol.
people that are having a
There's been a
difficult
case study
time.
in the
So
law of unintended
whether that's picking up a hitchhiker,
gosh,
taking
something I
somebody
can agree
in,
with
or
Senator
whatever,
McCain
whatever.
about.
What I
You
find
could
is a
not
lot
see
of
the
people
unintended
want
consequences
government
of
to
things
do
like
this,
McCain Feingold.
and
But at least
they
he
don't
sees
ever
them
look
for
at the
ethanol
consequences. No one ever
should
is
not be
willing to
subsidizing
put
ethanol.
on the
We're
brakes
trying to
on paying
change
more for
America's
government.
fuel
We pay
consumption
more and
pattern.
more and
General
more
Wesley
every year.
Clark
It's
now
more and more
fights for
expensive to
ethanol.
have
In
the same
2008,
government
paid
we
over
had years and years and years
$50
ago.
to the Saudi
So
government
we have a guy in
for
Illinois,
imported
Chicago,
oil.
Illinois. It's
And we're
freezing
still
back there
doing it,
now.
even
It's
though we're
frigid
paying
back
you
there now.
guys a ton.
The
I
point
think it was
is that
Ohio
the
or
money that's
Iowa where
paid
a
on
dog
ethanol is
actually
money that
froze
stays
on the
within
front
the
porch
American
the other
economy.
day.
It does.
So a
but
suburban
at what
Chicago
cost?
man
The Congressional
has been
Budget
told
Office
by the
says
government
for each
to
gallon of
stop
gas replaced with ethanol, we pay
taking in people. At
$1.78
first, he let
subsidy.
them stay in
But
his
at least our
garage,
money
and then it was
stays
too
in the
cold for them
country.
to stay in his
makes
garage
me
because he
feel
felt bad
good.
for them
I'm
being
keeping the money
outside
in
of shelter.
America. All these
So then he moved
programs
him
are
into
designed
his
to make
basement,
people feel good.
and
We're gonna help the
so the
farmers, and we're
government
gonna
of
hurt the
Chicago
farm oil
has said,
producers
you
with
either
ethanol.
get
We
those
don't
homeless
look at
people
what is
back
not
out on the
seen,
street,
which is the
or we're
rising
going to
price of
condemn your
milk
home.
and the excessive
Now I want
amount
you to
of
think about that for a
fertilizer
minute.
and fuel
If
that was used to
I've
produce
often
this
said
additional corn.
that
Oh,
you know
yeah.
you have people like
Food
California
prices are
Rural
high
Legal
because so
Assistance.
much farmland now
They don't
goes
have
to
enough
corn
guts to
used
take
for
in a
ethanol.
homeless person and
we
help them
consume
themselves,
lots
but
of
they'll
corn.
threaten to sue the
Corn
city of
syrup
Marysville or the
sweetens
county of
thousands of
Yuba
foods.
because the
It helps
politicians
create
will
the
say,
meat we
Lou,
eat.
if we wouldn't have
Corn's
spent
our
all
biggest
these
item.
millions of
Steve
dollars
Fogelsong, who
of
raises
your tax
cattle,
money,
is mad
we
that
would have got
feed
sued
costs
by
more
the
now
CRLA.
because ethanol
Well, what
is
I
both
would have done if I was on the board is
mandated
tell the
and
CRLA to go to hell.
wanna do the same
And then I
thing
would have
for me
fought
that
them in
you're doing
court.
for the
That's what
ethanol
I would have
guy,
done. And
then
then
you
we'll
have
see
to
where that all
mandate
ends up.
that absolutely
Because
every
the
man, woman,
government
child in
does
America has
much
to
too
eat
much
50 pounds of
already.
beef.
And my
then
feeling
you're gonna
is
turn around
that
and give me $2 a
individual
hundredweight on
people
these
like this
steers.
man in
Then we're at the
Chicago
same
need to
place.
do something.
But the ethanol industry
And
wants
it's
more
take a
subsidies.
person. You know
We're
that the
talking
problem
about free
is
markets.
that people, everybody is different. Every homeless person's very different. Some have addiction problems. Some make bad choices in general. Some people have a bad attitude. Some people have a mental health issue. And unless you get to know a person and handle every one of them one by one, you never do sort it out. You need to sort it out. You need to triage it. You need to take them in and figure it out. So we've encouraged people to take in our churches to take in people.
Entrepreneurs did.
And give them a chance. So recently I was in jail and I was speaking to the women, and this one woman said, I'm getting out tomorrow, I have nowhere to go. I've been abused by gang members, etc., etc. And I said, oh, we'll just stop by the house and I'll help you get a place to stay. So she did. 2 days later, instead of 1 day later, 2 days later, she came. And she came, and as I got to know her that day, we had a meal together, and as we talked, and she said, hey, can you give me a ride to Oroville? She applied to a couple shelters, and she got on it and applied. But then she said, I have a place to stay if you'll give me a ride to Oroville. I said, no problem, that's easy for me. In fact, that's the easiest thing I could do. That's a lot easier than taking her in. And so while I was with her, I noticed she probably had some mental issues. Just talking to her. And you can tell, sometimes some people think I got a mental issue, right? So, but you can tell talking to somebody, sometimes they're a nice person, but they're not thinking too squarely in this one particular area. But this person, a friend of hers, wanted her to stay with them for a while, so I took her up there. That solved that homeless case. Boom. It just solved it. Did it solve the rest of her life? No, the rest of my life's not solved. I'm solving it a day at a time. I'm taking care of business a day at a time. So she needs to solve her life a day at a time. But the fact is that each one of these people could be be handled in the services that we have. Now, I was given a packet by Andy Vasquez. He's the supervisor for 1st District in Yuba County. And he gave me this Sutter Yuba Mental Health Services resource listing for Yuba County. Now I'm sure some of these are bi-county services. This resource packet, this is a booklet, 8.5 by 11 size. It's 30 pages long of resources in our community. All kinds of resources. How to get a job, how to get health care services, how to get off drugs, rehabs, on and on and on and on and on. Preschool, schooling, how to get your GED, how to get this, victim witness, domestic violence, all this kind of stuff. Help. Reentry programs, bridges to housing, rehabs, rescue missions, clean and sober transition. There's just 30 pages. Yet we have to spend $1 million between the two counties for more and more services. We have to hire more bureaucrats. We have to hire a homeless czar. We have to, in Yuba, Sutter County, they got to build a building now that's going to cost $1 million. And they now are recruiting citizens to be on this. It's not whether it's interesting. It's a committee to cite this building that they think they need. Now let me tell you how that building's going to work. When you get people in that building that have no interest in living in an apartment and paying for it themselves, no interest in going to a job where they have to actually work for their income as opposed to getting paid and do a lousy job, where they have no interest in getting off drugs or marijuana, you're never going to get a clean urine test. You're going to have a building full of folks that aren't willing to cooperate, aren't willing to take the next step towards sobriety, towards self-sufficiency, and they are long past being a youngster. And you're going to be all on the Sutter County tax dole, just more and more welfare. It's interesting to me that you have person after person after person at Health and Human Services that gets $200,000, $230,000, $180,000, $190,000, $170,000, all just handing out money. That's what they do. They don't change any lives. They just hand out money that they took from you and me, right? And so now they're going to pick a committee, or they've been trying to figure out how to pick a committee that's going to then try to make a decision on where to put this homeless shelter. Now, do you know why they did that? Because politicians don't want to be responsible to pick that choice, make that choice, and then get voted out of office because of it. They want to blame that on a citizens committee. Well, that's what the citizens committee wanted. That's a democratic way to do it. So that's why we chose them. But what happened was when they said we need applicants for this committee, when the applications started coming in, the applications came in from a lot of people that they knew were against any kind of homeless shelter altogether. So they behind the scenes, they said, hey, we need to go out and find people that are for this shelter so we can get it put somewhere. By God, we're going to put in a shelter whether they want one or not. And so anyway, that's what's going on in Sutter County. But in Yuba and Sutter County, the Appeal Democrats doing their very best to shine the light on any person that changes their lives. The fact is, I was laughing with somebody the other day. We knew all kinds of people that were in prison, strung out on drugs, and all that kind of stuff. That churches are every day transitioning them into rehabs, into different kinds of help, getting them involved in church, getting involved in various... You know, the government, the secular government, they'd rather have people on drugs, welfare, and food stamps, and them giving them $1,000 a month to stay in a hotel than they would have them getting converted to Jesus and off everything and on their own. Did you know that? That's the way the truth is. Let me explain something to you. Yuba County supervisors are wanting to raise 1% sales tax for another 10 years or so. They say it's to pay for police and fire. Let me tell you some of the stupidity over there in Yuba County. They had a guy named Joe Cassidy who moved here from Ohio, where he got his doctor degree, medical degree. He was making twice the money he came to work at Yuba County for, and at that time, the health officer of Yuba County not only took care of the epidemics and health needs of the county, but also did the jail medical work and juvenile hall medical work, because we serve 3 counties in our juvenile hall here in Yuba County. So he was the health officer for the county to establish health policy and oversaw the health department. And then he also took care of 400 inmates in the jail, and he also took care of about 60 inmates at the juvenile hall. For that, they say every good work, no good work will go unpunished. So for that, Mary Jane Griego, then supervisor, did her very best to get him fired. So when Joe Cassidy finally retired from both the health as a health officer, he wanted to stay the jail doc and he wanted to stay the juvenile hall doc. He just wanted to practice medicine as opposed to politics. He couldn't get enough help through Yuba County. They wouldn't hire enough nurses for him to do a proper job. So he finally left the employ of Yuba County and went to work for Peachtree Clinic. Here's what they did to replace one man, Dr. Cassidy, who probably made, at the time he ended his career of over almost 25 years, I think he made probably about $190,000, right? A lot of money. That's what he would say too. Now, they have replaced him with 3 or 4 people to do one man's job. They have a health officer by the name of Nicole Quick. Nicole makes $261,373. I like Nicole Quick. She's a nice lady, and she's very passionate about her job. I think she probably works very, very hard. And she's very skilled with addicts, which you have to be in Yuba County. So that Nicole Quick only does the health officer job. She does not do any medical work for juvenile hall and does not do any medical work for the Yuba County Jail. So after Cassidy left, not understanding how much workload he was handling, Yuba County decision makers decided to go with an outside corporation, medical corporation, that costs far more than hiring their own people for both juvenile hall and the jail. Juvenile hall was very unhappy with that corporation and soon rehired Dr. Cassidy to just do their work, juvenile hall. So now you have, this is government inefficiency at its best. You replace one doctor who did all the health officer work, plus take care of 400 patients at the jail, plus take care of 60 juveniles. You replaced him with one health officer, making $261,000 plus a year, creating a whole medical corporation with a doctor over there at the jail that now does that separate, and hiring Dr. Cassidy back just to do juvenile hall. Now, that's a very part-time position, so he just drops in there several hours a week. My point is that's government inefficiency. And for that inefficiency, when they say to you, we are just monitoring every dollar and we are squeezing every penny, this might seem like a petty issue to you. It's symbolic of mass improper management of funds. And I've mentioned this many times before, but it just continues, and it's because they're stubborn and they have power in the government. And so on legal ads, when they could save 30 to 40% per column inch, I just bought an ad at the Appeal Democrat, cost me $500 for trauma intervention to advertise our next training, which comes up on February 22nd. Ads are really expensive, and legal ads are very expensive because there's been no competition up till recently to the Appeal Democrat. But the Yuba County government insists upon buying legal ads through the Appeal Democrat, which has less circulation than the Territorial Dispatch, and charges 30 to 40% more per column inch for a legal ad. Now, the it's amazing to me, the agency leaders, the department leaders of Yuba County that make $200,000 to $300,000 are so ignorant. They did not even realize, the treasurer of the county did not even realize that the appeal Democrat does not even deliver to the mountains anymore. They get no circulation up there, but the territorial does. So he claims the appeal got better circulation, and the territorial had to explain to the treasurer of the county of Yuba. He asked him this question: do you know that above Browns Valley there is no distribution of the appeal Democrat anymore? The guy was clueless. Now, it's amazing to me when you pay people $170,000, $180,000, $190,000, $210,000, and any time there's a decision to be made, they got to hire a consultant or have a citizens committee. When are we going to get people that make a lot of money? It's like when they paid Dr. Cassidy a lot of money to be the doctor. He could at least diagnose the problem and figure it out. Are we out of time? We're about out of time. So if you think the county of Yuba has judicially used their money, they just announced they're going to do $1.2 million public works building. Why don't they sub out public works and quit building buildings? They're going to build a $1.2 million or something like that building in Loma Rica. Maybe it's needed, maybe it isn't. It just seems like they spend a lot of money, but at the same time, they're wanting 1% more sales tax for you and me to pay every day. I think it's ridiculous. We'll be back next week. Take it easy when you meet people this week. You might meet an angel out there.